Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar. My name is Mark Stansfield. I'm a Senior International Officer here at the University of Glasgow. So yes, I'm here to give a little bit of an introductory presentation to Glasgow today. I'm going to aim to talk for no more than about 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so. I don't want to talk for too long, and then I will allow some time for questions at the end. As you'll see on the platform, there is a question section, so please feel free to type in any questions that you might have, and I'll leave those until after the presentation, and then I will be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. So thank you all for coming. Slightly different format, doing a virtual fair. Obviously, given the current circumstances in the world with the COVID-19 pandemic, I was due to be visiting Turkey a few weeks ago, but unfortunately, for obvious reasons, that trip did not happen. But I'm very glad that I still get the chance to speak to you, albeit virtually, and hopefully you'll find today's session quite interesting and hopefully worthwhile as well. So just to kick things off, I want to begin by giving a little bit of an introduction and an overview to the University of Glasgow. So Glasgow as an institution was founded back in 1451. So we are the fourth oldest university in the English-speaking world. So we have a long history of education and of teaching. We are based in Glasgow, which is in Scotland in the north of the UK. And I'll talk a little bit more about the city and a little bit more about Scotland in a few slides' time. So yeah, a couple of interesting stats there. So just explaining that Glasgow has been voted the world's friendliest city. And we have just under 96% of our students, our graduates, go into employment or further study within 6 months. So that's something that we are very proud of, and a lot of work that we do as an institution to be allowing students the chance to access our career service, to be working on internships, to be doing joint research with industry and things. So just something there to highlight that we are particularly proud of. So again, to give an overview, so this picture in the background is the cloisters of the university, which has been used in many films and television programmes. So this is in the heart of the campus. In terms of our ranking, we are one of the world's top 100 universities, according to the Times Higher Education World Rankings. This year on the QS World Rankings, we were ranked 67th overall in the world, and we were ranked last year the 29th most international university in the world. We have around 29,000 students studying with us from over 140 different countries. So we are a very, very international university. There is a very perfect, there is a very, very diverse group of students on campus at the university. We are also a Russell Group university as well. Now, what does that mean? We are one of a small number of highly ranked and prestigious research-intensive universities in the UK. So Glasgow is a member of the Russell Group. I'm often asked by students, what does that mean? It's a good question. What I would say is that it's a little bit of a badge of honour. These are the most research-intensive universities in the UK. We all tend to be very well ranked. And also in terms of the reputation, it's often compared to the Ivy League in the US. So when it comes to looking for jobs and further study after your degree studies at Glasgow, whether that be at undergraduate level or master's or PhD, you know, that is that badge of honour, that reputation that the Russell Group has is a very strong one. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on rankings, because I always like to tell prospective students that when you're thinking about studying overseas and you're thinking about where you want to study, there's more to be thinking about than just ranking. You will first of all want to be focusing on the subject. So what is the subject you want to study, and where does the expertise of that particular institution lie? You also want to be thinking about where you want to study. So do you want to study in the UK? Do you want to study in Scotland within the UK? What size of university do you want to study at? So as I mentioned, at Glasgow, we have around 29,000 students, so we're quite a large university. Would you rather be at a smaller specialist university, being one of the ancient universities of the UK that I mentioned? We cover a very broad range of subjects at Glasgow, as the traditional ancient universities tend to. So there's lots to think about, but rankings is one of those factors that you want to be thinking about as well. And on top of our overall world ranking, I just wanted to break down some of our individual subject rankings within particular areas as well. So we are ranked in the top 20 in the UK for all of our subjects other than philosophy, which just falls out of the top 20. And you'll see here some of the subjects that we are ranked first in the UK for, according to the Complete University Guide. So veterinary medicine, dentistry and nursing, accounting and finance and education. We are third in the UK for law. Some of our arts subjects rank particularly highly as well, and our College of Arts is ranked in the world's top 50. And then we also have our rankings for engineering and science. So again, we have a very old engineering school, and you can see all of the subjects there. So rankings aren't everything, but I did want to touch on that in terms of Glasgow. Now, as I mentioned, we've been changing the world since 1451. So what do we mean by that? Well, we've had a long line of very influential people who have studied at Glasgow over the years. So some of the names on this screen you might recognise. So Adam Smith, one of the forefathers or who introduced modern thinking around economics, was a student and an academic at the University of Glasgow. We then also have James Watt, who, as you might know, kind of improved steam power engines. He was a real key figure in the Industrial Revolution and kind of learned how to harness steam power. So James Watt is a graduate of Glasgow. Lord Kelvin, who developed the Kelvin temperature scale, who you might be aware of, is also a graduate of Glasgow. John Logie Baird, who pioneered the invention of the television, studied and taught at Glasgow. Joseph Black, for any chemists in the room, will know Joseph Black. So we've had 7 Nobel laureates have studied at Glasgow over the years. We've also had some other fantastic world-changing inventions and that have been developed at Glasgow, such as using antiseptic in surgery. In terms of using statins to try and prevent heart attacks, was also developed at Glasgow. The world's first hospital X-ray department was developed by Glasgow. So what I'm trying to get across is that since 1451, we've had a real impact in the world, and we look forward to welcoming our next generation of world changers to come and study with us at Glasgow. So, as I mentioned, we're a research-intensive university. So we have a large number of active researchers who are researching across science, medicine, engineering, business, the arts, social sciences. But we have some key beacons that really bring together the key areas that we are focusing on as a university. And our kind of the main challenges we're looking to address at the moment are things around precision medicine and chronic diseases. Within that, it's worth mentioning that during the current crisis, many of our academics are heavily involved in the fight against coronavirus, both through their research that they're doing, and also many of our academics within our School of Medicine are returning to the front line. So many of our senior academics and professors are now back working in hospitals at the moment, leading on the front line fight against the pandemic. We also are very active in cultural and creative economics, future life, One Health, trying to address the world's inequalities, and also the nano and quantum world as a big area of focus at Glasgow as well. Now, as you can all probably tell from my accent, I am from Scotland. I was born in Glasgow, and other than living in Vancouver for 1 year, I've lived in Glasgow and in Scotland my whole life. So I'm biased because I'm from here, but last year Scotland was voted the most beautiful country in the world by Rough Guides. There's so much to do around Glasgow and around Scotland. As you can see from the image there in the background, we have some fantastic scenery. We have amazing mountains and landscapes, all very close to the city of Glasgow. Glasgow in Scotland is a very cultured place as well. So we have fantastic art scene, amazing live music, theatre, comedy and festivals, including the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is the largest cultural festival in the world, which takes place in Edinburgh each year. Now, Glasgow is the biggest city in Scotland, but Edinburgh is the capital. But both cities are very close to one another. So in around 40 minutes, 45 minutes on the train. You could go from Glasgow to Edinburgh. And hello to the students that are just joining us. Welcome to the presentation. We also have a strong history at Scotland as well. Now, I've already talked about the history of the University of Glasgow and the impact we've had on the world, but Scotland is a real historic country, so we have some fantastic castles and amazing ancient attractions that bring tourists from all over the world to come and visit Scotland and Glasgow as well. Now, onto the city of Glasgow. Now, this is an image of the river area of the city. Now, these are both music venues that you can see in the slide. So the green one is the Hydro, which is the fourth busiest arena in the world. And next to that is the Armadillo, which looks a little bit like a mini version of the Sydney Opera House, where, again, lots of live music and theatre events take place. Now, last year, Glasgow was ranked in the top 10 best cities in the world. Sorry, I'm just going to pause. It looks like there's potentially a problem with seeing slides. So let me just double check that everything's looking okay. I'm certainly trying to share my screen and my slides. Hopefully most of you can see the slides on the screen. Okay, I'll carry on for now. Please let me know if you're having any problems. Excellent. Sorry. So Glasgow was ranked in the top 10 best cities in the world last year. Perfect. Thank you for letting me know. As I mentioned, Glasgow is Scotland's largest city, so the biggest by population, and we're the fourth largest in the UK. So obviously we have London, we have Birmingham, Manchester, and then Glasgow. So it's the fourth biggest. Glasgow is a very green place, probably down to the rain that we get, and that's the one thing that Scotland perhaps falls down on a little bit, is that we do get quite a lot of rain in Scotland. But you know, we always say here that there's no such thing as bad weather. Just not having the correct clothing is the problem. So as long as you have a waterproof jacket and some sweaters, you'll be fine. There are over 90 parks and green spaces in Glasgow. The name Glasgow, translated into Scottish Gaelic, means dear green place. So there are lots of lovely green spaces all around the university and around the city as well. Now, the university is located in the west end of the city of Glasgow. So a really beautiful area. The park that I mentioned is there. There are lots of cafes, bars, restaurants, etc. The art galleries, cinemas. So much for students to get involved in. Now, this is an aerial shot of the main campus in the west end of the university. So as you can see, the main building there is the Gilbert Scott building, which really dominates the skyline of Glasgow. Wherever you are in the city, you can see the tower from the university. Also here is our 13th floor library. We have over 2 million books. We also have a number of special collections, including original Shakespeare manuscripts, etc. And we also have 3 museums on campus as well. Also within that image, you can see the number of buildings. So despite being a city university, so not a campus as such, it's all very close. So everything you can see within that image there is the university. I also just want to mention that we are really developing at the moment now some land which has always been owned by the university but had a hospital recently became available. So the university is investing £1 billion on a campus redevelopment programme. So this will complement what already exists. So these are new buildings that have been specially built to really position ourselves as one of the world's best universities. And what's going to be included in this? Well, interdisciplinary research spaces, which allow collaboration between different subject areas, but also with industry. And we're going to have really modern study spaces. The developers were speaking a couple of months ago on campus, and they described it that if Apple made a university campus, this would be it. So many cutting edge facilities, fantastic technology-led teaching facilities, etc. So we're really, really excited about this development. So just to show how that will develop, so in September, the James McCune Learning Hub was due to open. Now that's looking like it will be delayed slightly because at the moment with the pandemic, no building is taking place on campus. But we will have a new research hub. And as you can see in the various phases, we'll be adding a new Institute of Health and Wellbeing, a Chronic Diseases Research Centre, a new College of Arts, an Innovation Zone where we'll be working with business, and also a brand new business school. So for any students who are thinking about applying soon or in the next few years, this will be things that you will really be able to make the most of as a student at Glasgow. Now, on to our relationship with Turkey. We have a very long established relationship with Turkey. The first student who came to study at Glasgow studied with us in the late 18th century. So a long history of links with Turkey and Turkish students. We currently have in the region of around 45 Turkish students studying with us at Glasgow, but that number is growing each year. We have a partnership with Bilkent University in Ankara, and that's been in existence since 2011. So that's an exchange, a study abroad agreement, where students from Glasgow go to Bilkent and vice versa. There is also an association of Turkish alumni and students in Scotland, ATAS. They do a lot of work in terms of linking the Turkish community of students that are studying not only at Glasgow, but at other Scottish universities. And they also help in terms of linking you with potential job opportunities, linking you with former students from Turkey who have studied in Scotland, who are now maybe back working in Turkey, etc. So just to mention that there is a real active student body on campus. And we also have a University of Glasgow Turkish Society as well. So they promote Turkish culture within Glasgow, within the city. They organise lots of different events, so some support for students. So talking here about how they can help with ATAS. Also last year, the Turkish women's hockey team played at the championships in Glasgow, and some of our students went along to support the team, as you can see in the second image there. And also each year they organise farewell parties for any students that are graduating to return home to Turkey or on to wherever they're going. So again, just to highlight that there is a nice culture. There are some very nice Turkish restaurants in Glasgow as well. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about all of the subjects we offer because, as I've already touched upon, we offer a broad range, over 300 degree combinations available at bachelor's level. We offer over 600 master's degrees. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I just want to give a very broad introduction to each of the colleges and just give you an idea of the broad areas that we focus on. So these are all of the broad subject disciplines that we offer at Glasgow. The one main exception is really anything around design and art, fine art, out-and-out architecture. These are some of the subject areas that we don't really do at Glasgow. So the first college just to introduce is the College of Arts. Some fantastic world-leading facilities. We have very strong links with partners all over the world, including the Smithsonian, fantastic rare books and manuscripts. Digital Archive of Scottish text is based at Glasgow. So really some fantastic facilities for our art subjects. And that includes things like modern languages, international relations, politics. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon of Scotland, is a graduate of the University of Glasgow in politics. So a broad range of subjects falling into arts, English literature, translation studies, all of those kind of areas would fall under arts. But again, on our website, you can see a lot more detailed information about all of the courses that we teach. Next up is our College of Medical, Veterinary and Life Sciences. We have 7 research institutes focused on including improving health and quality of life, looking at things from cancer sciences, cardiovascular health, etc. We have one of the largest and most prestigious medical schools in Europe. And we also have a veterinary school as well, which is located very close to the main campus that I showed you, and that's fully accredited, as all of our professional degrees are, from medicine, dentistry, accountancy, are all fully accredited. Then onto our College of Science and Engineering, again teaching a broad range of subjects across biological sciences, physics, chemistry, across a whole range of engineering. We also teach engineering programs that are teamed up with business. So you would do one semester doing engineering programs, and then the second semester you would do business. So there's a good kind of mix within that as well. And then last but not least, we have our College of Social Sciences. So again, we have lots of international partners. We have the leading education and law schools in the UK. Again, employability is at the heart of everything we do in each of the schools, but social sciences do a lot in terms of supporting international students with internship opportunities. Last year, as you may have heard, the UK government announced that they were going to reintroduce the post-study work visa. Now, that's something that we're very happy about. In Glasgow and Scotland and the UK, we've been campaigning for this since the moment it was removed by the government. So with this, students studying, international students coming to study in the UK will be able to remain for 2 years after study to find work. Now, at the moment, it's only a couple of months, so we are delighted that this has been extended. Now, we're still waiting on the finer details about this, and I think between Brexit, and now COVID-19 coronavirus. I think the government have just been a little bit slow in the detail, but they are committed to this, and that's a great opportunity for any international students who want to remain overseas after their studies, that the UK will now be easier to do that and bring us a bit more in line with Canada and Australia and some other countries. Within the College of Social Sciences, I just wanted to pull out our Adam Smith Business School. So Adam Smith, as I mentioned earlier, is a graduate of Glasgow, the forefather of modern economics. Our business school is triple accredited, and we offer modules and subjects across accountancy and finance, economics, management, financial technology, and of course, MBA programs as well. Now, on to entry requirements, and I'm going to split the next few sections into undergraduate and postgraduate because I know there might be a mix of people in the room today, so I wasn't sure exactly who was here, so I'll just cover everything as quickly as I can because I want to make sure I allow enough time for questions. So for students who are studying the high school qualification in Turkey, we're normally looking for an absolute minimum score of about 75% for most of our subjects for entry into year one of the programme. One thing to mention about Scotland is that it's a little bit different from the rest of the UK in that at bachelor's, undergraduate level, we study for 4 years in Scotland rather than 3. Now, what that translates as is undergraduate students are able to take a broad range of subjects. Now, there are some exceptions to that, so things like medicine and dentistry, you follow a far more defined path. But for some other subjects, students are able to try and test different things and work out what they want to focus on as they go along. So we're normally looking for a minimum of 75%. We also accept students coming who have done A-levels at schools in Turkey and also the IB diploma as well. And again, that varies from subject to subject, but we're generally looking for an absolute minimum of 32 points. And in some courses, it's closer to 38 that we would be looking for at undergraduate level. At postgraduate level, for our top master's programmes, we're generally looking for an absolute minimum GPA of about 3.0 out of 4 is normally what we're looking for. For research students, obviously that's slightly different. We're normally looking for you to have an idea of the research that you want to conduct. We're normally looking for you to speak to our academics about your research proposal. But again, if any students who are here today are interested in a PhD at Glasgow, I'll leave my contact details at the end of today's presentation, and I would be happy to speak to you about that individually. And that goes for everyone who's here today. I'll take some questions at the end, but I will also leave my email address so that you can contact me if you need to. I also just wanted to mention that Glasgow works with Kaplan International Colleges as well. So if anyone was looking at our entry requirements there and thought, those are maybe a little bit too high for me, or I might not be achieving that grade quite yet, it's just to highlight that there is the opportunity to do both pre-masters and foundation programmes at Glasgow International College. Now, the college is based on the campus, so you're very much a Glasgow student. With the undergraduate foundation programme, you just do a slightly different year one. So you would follow either the business and social sciences route or the science and engineering route. And provided you pass, you would progress to year 2 of the undergraduate degree. Similarly, we offer pre-masters programmes across a broad range of subjects. So if your GPA is maybe a little bit lower than 3, you would be eligible to come into Glasgow International College to do 1 year of pre-masters and then progress to the master's degree at Glasgow. But again, I've left Kaplan International College's website address down at the bottom there, so you can have a look at that if you're interested. Now, the next requirement is around our English language requirements. So for most courses, we are normally looking for an IELTS score of 6.5 overall, with no subtests less than 6. Now, as you'll see, we accept a number of different English language qualifications. So at Glasgow, we also accept the TOEFL, Cambridge, Pearson Academic. I have a slide at the end about the impact of the coronavirus at the moment, because I understand that for many students it's difficult to be taking any English language tests at the moment. So I will talk at the end of my presentation, before I take questions, just about what we're doing as a university to support applicants and to support students around this. But it is just to highlight that we do accept more than just the standard IELTS, which many universities do. Also, to highlight that if your English level is a little bit below that, we also offer pre-sessional English programmes. So you would just come to Glasgow earlier and do a course of English language before your programme starts. You don't need to take another IELTS test at the end. Provided you pass, you progress directly onto the degree. We run quite long pre-sessional programmes, the longest being 36 weeks. and then we run a 10-week and a 5-week program. So if you're almost there or just feel like you need a little bit of help before you start your studies, then that is an option for you as well. For undergraduate students studying through UCAS, for undergraduate students applying, you would apply through UCAS, and you can apply for up to 5 UK universities. That way, we're also on the Common App, which tends to be more towards American institutions, but you can do that at Glasgow, but you can only apply to one or the other. So just be aware of that. So when to apply via UCAS? So applications open in September each year. The deadline for medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, and Oxford and Cambridge universities is the 15th of October. But we accept applications from international students right up until the 30th of June. For postgraduate courses, that's slightly different. You would just apply directly to the university. So you go to the course page and there's an apply now button on the course page. So it's very, very straightforward. You can apply before you've completed your studies and have your final exam, or before you've taken an English language test. Any offer we make you would just be conditional upon you achieving those requirements. Generally, we don't charge an application fee for most of our programs, but we do for our Adam Smith Business School programs. And that's just because of the number of applications that we get for those subjects. So we're just looking for serious applications for those subjects. What do we need from you? Well, we need your school certificates, we need your degree certificates, we need an English language test, a letter of motivation, a copy of your passport. If you're being sponsored by the Ministry of Education in Turkey, we would ask you to upload your sponsor documents as well. So just to mention that we do have a number of students who are sponsored by the Turkish Ministry of Education at Masters and PhD level who are studying with us at Glasgow at the moment. Applications are very flexible. Generally, as long as you've applied by the 22nd of July each year, we will still be accepting applications up until that point. But some courses do fill up before that. So it's just to be mindful of applying a little bit earlier. The earlier, the better, generally, is my advice. Now, in terms of tuition fees, so first of all, our undergraduate tuition fees are listed here. As you will see, the fees for our clinical programs like dentistry, medicine and veterinary medicine are a lot more expensive, and that's just because of the hospital and clinical experiences that fall within those programs. But for our other degrees, these are the fees sort of per year at undergraduate level, and I will talk about scholarships in a minute. At postgraduate master's level, these are the fees, again, for most of our subjects, so varying between about 18 up to about £26,000 is the average for most subjects. Now, on to the what I would like to mention about scholarships next. So at undergraduate level, we have undergraduate excellence scholarships, and a number of Turkish students have been awarded these this year. That's £5,000 for each year of study. So over the 4 years, that translates as a fee discount of £20,000, which works out roughly at about 1 year's tuition fee of the degree programme. So we understand that it doesn't cover everything, but we hope that it's a start. So again, if anyone is thinking about applying to Glasgow and wanted a little bit more information about whether they might be eligible for this scholarship, I will leave my email address up at the end, and you're very, very welcome to speak to me. These tend to be allocated on academic merit, and there is no application form. You would be considered automatically. We also have a number of postgraduate scholarships. So we have some specific just for students from Turkey. There are some awards. The biggest award as a university generally is £10,000, our International Leadership Award. So again, often translating as around about or not quite 50% of the fee. There are also a number of external awards, so things like the Commonwealth Scholarship. Next year, we will be bidding for one of the British Council Great Scholarships. We had one last year. Unfortunately, we weren't successful in our bid for a Turkish one this year, but Chevening scholarships and things as well. So just being aware of the external scholarships that do exist as well. And the link there is the link to the scholarship search function on our website as well. Now, I'm going to run through the final few slides quite quickly because I just see I'm having a look at my other screen and I think there's some questions coming through, so I'm happy to try and allow some time to get through those if I can. But first of all, just to talk a little bit about living expenses. So aside from the tuition that I mentioned, Glasgow, despite being a big city, is generally students consider it a fairly affordable city to live. I think certainly if you're thinking about studying in London, Scotland is much, much cheaper than in London. Similarly, I would say Glasgow is even cheaper than Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland. So, you know, in comparison to Turkey, you might find this still being, quite expensive. But we do like to think that Glasgow is a fairly affordable place compared to some other big cities in the UK and elsewhere in Europe. So this is a very rough guide that we've developed for students. Now, as you will see, this could be much less than this. I don't know whether you would need to be spending £70 a month on clothes. If you're living in university accommodation, it's all within walking distance, so your travel costs would be limited. Entertainment, so eating out, socialising, do you need to be spending £120 a month? I'm not sure. So this just hopefully gives you an idea of the kind of average cost of living per month in Glasgow. We have accommodation for international postgraduate and undergraduate students. As I mentioned, all of the residences are within walking distance of the university. All of them include all utilities, Wi-Fi, gym membership. We have staff within each of the residences. We keep undergraduate and postgraduate students separate. We also have single-sex residences, if that's something that you would be looking for. There are also private accommodation options in the city, so private residences, private apartments. I think the university accommodation is often the cheapest option and makes life easy for you. We guarantee you a place in it as long as you apply by August, which is normally the deadline for the course starting in September. Very briefly, I just wanted to mention that despite being a very large university, we are quite proud of the support that we give our students. We have an Ask a Student service online at the moment where you can speak to current students if you have any questions that you want to find out more about the course or more about what it's like to be a student at Glasgow. We also have an international student support service, so they offer help with visa applications, for example. We have a doctor's surgery on campus, we have a disability service, the career service that I mentioned earlier, who provide a lot of support in helping you to find work, internship opportunities, that kind of side of things. Students coming on a Tier 4 visa can work part-time in the UK for 20 hours per week. Now, most students do that. My advice is just try to get the balance right. Make sure that you're not working too much so that it impacts negatively your studies. But also I understand that for many students, working and earning money is very important. It was for me when I was a student. So it's just to mention that you are able to do that. We have also some strong services around English language support. We have a chaplaincy service for students of all faiths or no faith, and also a counselling and psychological services as well. I'm going to quickly skip a couple of slides. Sport, I don't want to spend too much time on sport. We have I think now we're up to 55 sports clubs, from football, tennis, basketball, you name it. We have a swimming pool, a great gym facilities on campus. So much to get involved in as a student with sport, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about that. We have amazing clubs and societies. So I already mentioned we have a Turkish student society, but anything you can imagine we have societies for. So there's a really active student body at Glasgow. So much to get involved in, so easy to make friends, so international. So as I mentioned, over 140 different nationalities. So yeah, I think there's so much to get involved in. And aside from your studies, a chance to really have fun while you're studying as well. How to get to Glasgow. I travel to Turkey regularly as part of my role at Glasgow. So I normally fly direct with Turkish Airlines from Edinburgh University straight to Istanbul. Now, you can fly also to Glasgow. You would just probably have to go via Amsterdam or via London, but there is a direct route from Edinburgh to Istanbul. And then from there, you would be under 1 hour from Edinburgh Airport to get to Glasgow. There is a bus that leaves straight outside Edinburgh Airport that takes you straight to Glasgow. So it couldn't be easier to get from Edinburgh to Glasgow. For any students coming to Glasgow, we have a really strong orientation programme where we meet students at the airport to take you to the residences. We organise social events to get you settled. We help with any advice, anything you need when you first arrive in Glasgow. So just to highlight that we are a very supportive university for our international students. Which brings me on quite nicely to my final slide, which is obviously in relation to the worrying time that we're all facing at the moment regarding coronavirus. Now, we still have a number of international students who are still with us in Glasgow at the moment, who either chose to remain here for safety reasons or weren't able to get home in time. We also are getting a lot of questions from our applicants around what is happening around coronavirus. What is the university doing? So I just wanted to put up a very quick slide because I'm conscious of time. I do need to finish in around 10 minutes and I do want to allow questions, but I just wanted to mention that we have an FAQ page on our website that we're updating regularly. At the moment, we are aiming towards starting teaching in September, but we understand that that might not be possible. So we're looking at a number of options at the moment, whether that be online teaching or whether that's moving the term date back slightly. We also understand that schools and universities in Turkey are shut just now, so that's causing concern for some students in terms of being able to get the documentation that they need. Don't worry, we're trying to be as flexible about that as we can. Also English language, as I mentioned, I know that at the moment it's difficult for students to be able to take IELTS tests, for example. So again, we are looking at other alternative English tests that we can accept, just to try to be as flexible as we can be about that. For many programs, we also need students to pay a deposit, and also we are delaying that. So we are delaying any deposit payments at the moment to make sure that students are, not disadvantaged by what's happening with the pandemic just now. So we are in contact with our applicants regularly, but trying to get the balance right of not contacting you too often, but also just communicating what we are doing as a university, both for our current students, what our staff are doing in terms of support for students, but also our staff from our medicine school and research students that are on the front line. So please do keep an eye on the FAQs on the website. I've left the link there. We will do all we can to support any applicants that are thinking about applying for this year. I'll leave this slide up as I start to look through the questions. So that's my email address. My name is Mark, the Senior International Officer for Turkey. Please feel free to contact me. What I would say is that today we're finishing up for the Easter holidays. So I'm taking what I think is a well-earned break for a few days. I won't be back in the office after today until Wednesday of next week. But if you do have any questions about anything I've talked about today, if you want any more detailed information about anything that I haven't had time to talk about, then please do email me and I'll be happy to help. So, thank you for listening. I appreciate that was a lot of information that I've thrown at you in about 30 minutes, but I now just want to try and go through some of the questions that people have asked. So if you just bear with me. So first question, thank you very much for submitting it, Faiza, and apologies if my pronunciation of your name is not correct. So your first question was around my accent. So my accent is easy and comfortable to understand. However, I'm afraid in Scotland it might be hard to understand people. What do you think? Good question. It's one that I've been asked about quite a lot. I'm pleased to hear that you can understand what I've been saying for the last 30 minutes, so I'm reassured about that. What I would say is, again, we're a very international university. We have Turkish academics teaching at Glasgow. We have academics from America, from all over Europe, all over the world. Glasgow is a city that's used to having a lot of international students. So yes, you might get in a taxi sometimes, or you might be on a bus and not understand what the driver is saying to you. I don't understand that either. So yeah, I would say, don't worry too much about that. We understand that the Scottish accent sometimes isn't the easiest. So our teaching staff, moderate that and maybe speak a little bit slower than we normally would. But yeah, don't panic about that. We have over 7,000 international students studying at Glasgow, so you will not be alone on that front. And we're an open university, so if you don't understand what someone is saying in class, I would encourage you to put your hand up and just say, sorry, Professor, would you mind speaking a little bit slower for me? So please try not to worry about that. If you can understand me, then that's the main thing. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So can you give some information about scholarship opportunities for postgraduate programs, especially law? Well, hopefully, I kind of touched upon that on the slides that I mentioned about scholarships. Law programs are eligible for those £10,000 awards that I mentioned. So I would say go on the search function. You would put in that you were looking to do a master's in law, that you're from Turkey. Then you hit search, and that will bring up all of the scholarships that you might be eligible for. So hopefully I kind of answered that question as part of it. PhD and assistantship opportunities for education students. Absolutely. I think I probably don't have time today to talk too much about that. So perhaps we could follow up, Faiza, via email if you wanted to. I think absolutely we have a large education department at Glasgow. We have, I know off the top of my head, we have a number of Turkish students studying PhDs in education at Glasgow at the moment. So absolutely, there are opportunities. In terms of funding for those opportunities and things, that's perhaps something that we could discuss sort of via email after today, if that sounds okay. So perhaps that's something that we can maybe pick up via email, if that sounds okay to you. Do we still have to have the language proficiency score if we graduated from an English-speaking country of university? Good question. So at the moment, that depends on how long you've studied in English. So we're trying to be as flexible as we can be. So if you already have a master's degree or an undergraduate degree from an English-speaking majority country, then we try our best to waive the English language requirements if we can. Now, for some programs, we do have a requirement that you would have to have studied in English for 2 years. But again, given the current pandemic, we're looking at being as flexible as we can be around that. So we haven't made any official decision on those programs yet. So keep an eye on the FAQ website and the English language section if you are looking to apply for this September. If it's later than that, then that's something that, you know, we can talk about further down the line. You know, I hope that once the COVID-19 pandemic is over, that I will be back in Turkey later this year. I aim to be visiting Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir. So hopefully I might be able to meet with many of you in person later this year, and we can pick up some discussions around that. Next up, could you please send the presentation? Yep, absolutely. I'd be happy to share that after today's presentation. So I'll just take a note of your email address and I can tidy that up and send it on to you. For PhD or master's students, what do we get first, acceptance or the scholarship? Now that depends on the scholarship. If it's a university scholarship, we would need you to have applied first of all. Now you don't need an unconditional offer as long as we have made you an offer to study, meaning that you don't necessarily have to have taken your English language test and completed everything just yet. But you would need to have applied before being considered for any university scholarships. If you're thinking about applying for a scholarship in Turkey, so perhaps, for example, through the Ministry of Education, then that's slightly different. My understanding is that you can apply for the scholarship first, and then you decide which university you maybe want to go to. So it will depend on the scholarship, but for the university scholarships, you would need to have applied and been made an offer before we would consider any scholarships for you. Perfect. Is the place a walking friendly city? Public transport? Do we have to have a car? Yeah, I hope I kind of covered that when I was talking about Glasgow. I would say, despite being the biggest city in Scotland, it's quite a compact city. We have a total population in Glasgow of about 600,000 people. We have a total population in Scotland of about just over 5 million, 5.5 million people. So compared to Istanbul or London, Scotland is small and Glasgow is small. But I think it's big enough in that, you know, there's lots to do in terms of restaurants and cultural activities, art galleries, music, as I mentioned, museums. But it is easy to get around. So we have an underground system. We have a subway network in Glasgow. Compared to London and Moscow and New York, where it goes a bit crazy, Glasgow is 2 circles, an inner circle and an outer circle. So it couldn't be easier to get around. The university is in the west end of the city. The city centre is around 10 minutes away on the underground, 15 minutes by bus, 30 to 35 minutes if you're walking. So yeah, it's really, really easy to get around. I live in the West End, quite close to the university. I can walk into the city centre in about 25 minutes. Many students cycle. It's quite a cycle-friendly city. So yeah, I think in answer to your question, I think it's a walking friendly city, but also we do have public transport for those days that maybe it's raining quite a lot or it's a little bit cold and you might not want to walk too far. But all of our university residences are within about 15 or 20 minutes walk of the university. So really, really easy to get around. Okay, so I think at the moment, that looks like I've answered all of the questions, I think. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I have to finish up at 1:45 to allow the next presentation to get organised. So obviously I can't see any of you, but thank you very much for coming along to find out a little bit more about Glasgow. I hope you found it interesting and useful. I hope that many of you are considering applying to join us at Glasgow. If you do have any follow-up questions, please do get in touch. Obviously, my email address is still on the screen there. So please do reach out to me if there's anything I can do to help. Also, the Turkish Student Society that I mentioned are also very happy to speak to prospective Turkish students. So if you had any questions that you felt I couldn't answer, or you wanted to speak to a Turkish student to find out what is it really like in Glasgow, then I would be happy to help set that up. So please just contact me by email. If you do apply to Glasgow, then obviously I will be visiting again later in the year. So I hope to meet many of you either in Turkey later this year, or in Glasgow if you do choose to study with us. So thank you for bearing with me. I've talked at you for a very long time. I'm away to drink some water. But yeah, thanks very much for coming along. I hope it was useful, and I hope many of you choose to apply to Glasgow. So thank you for your time. Take care, please stay safe, look after yourselves and your friends and family. I know this is a difficult time, but please do keep in touch, and good luck. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Mark, thank you so much for your participation. Have a good day.
Thank you. And you. Thank you very much for your help.
Bye.
Bye-bye.